Welcome to the UKOCR Community Podcast, presented by Obstacle Racing Media. Each episode, we'll be talking to race directors, elite runners, weekend warriors, and frankly, anyone else from the UKOCR scene that will talk to us. Here is your host, Alan, aka Muddy Duck.
Anywhere in Chicken Town. The bloody scene is bloody sad. The bloody news is bloody bad.
Greetings, friends, acquaintances, and anyone else who just happens to be listening. Welcome to another edition of the UKOCR podcast. And what an edition we have for you. Now, if you don't know, I normally host these, but I've been moving house this last week, been really struggling to get podcasts recorded, as well as edit, so I've had a few people step in for me. And this is what I want to talk a little bit about before I get into the podcast, is how people pull together to help each other. And because, excuse me, I've got music. I thought I'd turn my phone off. This week, the community's pulled together so much. First of all, I saw Imi Yale's post on Instagram, Girls in Sport, and how she's saying it was her first race at Spartan, and she was nervous about being on the elite start line, and how everyone pulled together and made her feel welcome, and how good the community is. And then today on my little run, I've been listening to another podcast, Accountability Corner, with Chris Shipley, Darren Martin, Morgan Maxwell, and they talked a little bit about people getting into the sport and how good a community it is in there. And I was thinking, you know, we've got that. This week I've been really struggling. Last 2 weeks I've been really struggling with myself, with my own mental health, with some things, and I don't want to go into what I'm struggling with. But a lot of people who know me have pulled together in this community and helped me out no end. So those guys, you know you are. Big massive thank you to all of you who've helped me in the last 2-3 weeks get through my challenges. And yeah, keep it up, guys. If we're all positive, we can all remain positive. And this is what's happening, I guess, since COVID. The community has become positive. There's very little backbiting, bitchiness, all of that's going off. Or not I see it anymore, or if it is, it's not in open public forums like it used to be. So big thank you to everyone. Let's keep this sport growing. Which then brings me on to today, because sport growing and everything else, British Obstacle Sports. That's what this is about, this episode. A Q&A. Got a little bit of stick recently in a couple of little private groups. Been talking about community being positive, but they got a little bit of like, especially when Europe's Toughest Mudder was going off. Why do we have to be members and things like that? So I reached out, me and James got together and we talked about, let's have a Q&A. This has been on the cards now for nearly 4 weeks. Then I've been too busy and things like that. So Will stepped in for me this week. So Will's been an absolute diamond, and he's gone and done all the Q&A. So every question we got sent in, here they all are. Let's take it away, Will. Thank you very much.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the latest UK OCR podcast. My name is Will Chung. This is not Who's Hot, but this is a special Ask Me Anything with British Obstacle Sports. Unfortunately, Alan isn't able to make it. He's been moving house, so you have the dulcet tones of a Midlands twang from myself, Will Chung. So before I move on, let me introduce the 2 members of British Obstacle Sports who will be asking all the questions. James, over to you.
Hi, I'm James Burton. I am the chair and president of British Obstacle Sports. I have been involved with British Obstacle Sports since 2019 and been doing various obstacle sports races, OCR and Ninja, around the world since 2013. Thank you for having me, Will.
Hi, I'm Becky Neal. I'm the OCR technical representative on the board, which means I chair the technical committee. I'm also kind of a go-between between our National Athlete Council, getting information from them and working with the technical committee and the board, which is really useful. And I've been in that role for about 2 years now and competing as well alongside.
Brilliant. So James, Becky, thank you very much for jumping on. So for those that may have missed the questions, basically what we've done with UKOCR is just ask lots of questions. It was an Ask Me Anything. It went on for about 4 weeks. And this was an idea for all of members, non-members, or anyone just interested in obstacle racing, just to ask a question about British obstacle sports and what's going on. But the very first one, really for the newbies. So if people don't know who or what British obstacle sports is, who are they? What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So British Obstacle Sports was founded in 2019. So essentially, we are the national governing body for OCR, obstacle course racing, and ninja sport. And ninja sport, for anyone who's not aware, is essentially what people would be familiar with as Ninja Warrior, the game show. And that's kind of how ninja sport has developed as its own sport. As with all national governing bodies, you'll be familiar with British Cycling, the Football Association, Lawn Tennis Association. Most of these governing bodies have over 100 years of being founded, and their involvement in the sport is to develop it, to administer it, to keep it safe, to manage the rules and implement kind of how the sport goes forward, both from a competitive perspective and an elite level perspective. For many sports, that's through to Olympics or major international tournaments, through to participation. How do we get more people active, out, being fit and healthy? So at this stage, British Obstacle Sports is the national governing body for OCR and Ninja, but it's not recognised as an official sport. So what that means is the UK sports councils, so Sport England, Sport Northern Ireland, Sport Scotland, Sport Wales, they don't recognise British Obstacle Sports at this time as the official national governing body. And what that means is a number of things, but the primary thing there means that if these UK sports councils have funding, they will not give that to British Obstacle Sports because it's deemed a high risk sport. There's lots of other things that national governing bodies do. I'd maybe pass to Becky if there's any key things that you wanted to mention as well.
Yeah, I suppose we represent the members, the people who take part, competing, doing it for fun, trying to stay fit and healthy. So we represent their views and hopefully do that up to all stages, up to kind of competition level internationally. So I think we're here to represent the athletes that take part and kind of look for ways that we can improve access to doing OCR or doing ninja sport, as well as competing in it.
Yeah, the other key thing to mention is that it's a voluntary organisation, and it's all people that love the sport that have got involved to because we see the benefit, and we'll probably talk about this at length in this podcast, the benefit of becoming recognised and growing the sport. We've developed our mission is to ensure that everyone in the UK can enjoy the endless possibilities of obstacle sports. I think that's why so many of us love it, because it can be so different from event to event, from race to race, and really looking to develop officials, coaches, the structure of the sport, because it's such a, as we all know, it's such an infant sport and so new in real terms to most other sports out there.
Brilliant. So that moves us on to our first question, and this one's anonymous, but what steps do you take when you hit 1,650 members? Where can it lead, and what are the timescales? What happens if membership falls below this number?
Well, it's a very timely question, 1,650, because on August 13th, at around 7:05 a.m., we actually hit the magic number of 1,650 members. So this, I feel like we need a pause for a bit of like a triumphant, yes, we've done it. Which is pretty amazing to get to that. So thank you to all the members for joining British Obstacle Sports. It's such an important step. So for people that aren't familiar, we had to hit 1,650 members to start our pre-application with the UK sport councils. So unless we hit that, the sports councils are like, well, actually, you haven't got this critical mass of members that would make you really a fit national governing body to move forward into the application process. But we hit that. So big thanks to everyone involved. And as I say, it was actually on registration at Spartan. A big thanks to Spartan as a key partner in helping us to move forward. So now it's the next step. We had an EGM on the 7th of August that just tidied up something with our constitution. That's been submitted to Companies House. So as soon as that's on Companies House, we've essentially done all the bits that were required for our pre-application. So we've got our constitution. We've had at least 2 years of AGMs. We've now got our 1,650 members. We've documented rules of the sport. We've documented the history of the sport and explained the sport. So that's all packaged up now, ready to hit submit and send actually to the sports councils to get their feedback. Once they receive the application, the pre-application, they have 6 weeks in their timescales to review the application. And once they've reviewed it, they will either say, great, we actually believe this is all sufficient to move to the next stage. You now have 1 year to submit your full application. So we've hit this amazing milestone of 1650 members, but it is only the start of the process. The next step is that full application, which is very significant as well in terms of the policies and information. I'm just going to grab a few points of reference here just to talk through. So it kind of is the building blocks of what a national governing body needs to do. And we have moved some of these things forward already. So for example, you've got governance structure, anti-doping policy, all of the finance and accounting protocols, data protection policy, what's our vision, what's our organisational development for British obstacle sports. We have to define how we are a unique sport, because if the sports council say you're too similar to another sport, they may say actually you need to partner with that sport and you can't exist in your own right. And then some really important things from a sport and development perspective about safety, how we grow participation, how do we develop talent, how do we develop youth. We've got so many exciting juniors. I actually think there's so many juniors that are untapped as well. If you think how many hundreds of thousands of kids are going to Ninja Warrior centres all around the country, most of those are doing it for fun, which is fantastic, but they don't even realise there's a sport out there as well. Coach development, which has really progressed well with the coaching team and so many coaches taking on the official level 2 coaching course. Technical official development, we have over 100 technical officials. So some of these areas are really developed now already and we're good to go. Other parts of the full application, we've got work to do and we have got a year to do it essentially after this 6 weeks. Unless, I should add, if after that 6 weeks they give us feedback, which means we can't move to that full application stage. We're at the kind of a cycle of going through the pre-application until they feel we're in a position to move forward. What have I missed? I'm sure I've missed things. I've been talking for a few minutes.
Technical officials as well. That development pathway is pretty advanced, and that's part of that full application.
Yeah,
too.
and the OCR Technical Ninja Sport Committee. So things like the UK OCR series, British champs. We kind of explain them from a sporting perspective. Membership wise, it is. We do need to maintain a healthy membership. So we've hit this number, but it is really important that everyone maintains their membership, because I'm sure if we went to 1,605, that's not going to be a problem. But if we drop to 900, they're going to say, okay, you've not got a healthy sport here. You're declining as a sport. So we really need to ideally continue to grow our membership numbers as well. So really open to feedback around retention, what would help you kind of stay as a member, what you're seeing as missing. And equally from the whole community getting involved to continue to grow the sport and maintain the sport as well.
Great. So the next question from Michelle Carney. If the application goes only to Sports England, what, if any, impact will this have on other home nations within the UK? If OCR becomes a recognised sport through this, will it only be England? And I think the intonation is then what happens to Scotland, Wales, Ireland? Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully clue is in the title in terms of British obstacle sports. So our intention, at least, our intention is to represent the whole sport, the whole of the United Kingdom. So our application will be for all 4 sports councils. There is, I guess, a little bit of a potential but, because our application goes to Sport England because our official headquarters are in London, although we are all working remotely as volunteers. So it goes to Sport England, but Sport England consults the other sports councils. So I don't foresee it being a problem, but they may say, actually, you don't have a sufficient following in Northern Ireland. We don't feel like we should recognise you as Northern Ireland. But I know we have a very strong following in Scotland, less so in Wales, but still kind of strong numbers in Wales. So I would feel like they would recognise for the whole of the UK, because normally it's the whole or it's just one home nation. So so nothing to fear there. We're going through Sport England, but they're consulting with the other sports councils.
Great. So this is my question that I did ask, and forever the optimist. Once we've jumped through all the hoops and we are a recognised sport, what funding is available? how much, if we know how much there is, what would the priorities for fundings be? Because I know there's so much to do, but surely we need to start to think, well, here's our list, which one should we be kind of putting more effort into?
Yeah, you're right. There is so much that we'd like to put funding into, and the next year that we have to complete that full application, organising doing the organizational development, doing the kind of sporting development, some of those kind of priorities will start to come through, developing the talent pathways or the youth development pathways or the coaching pathways. And we might recognize during that kind of full application stages where we're building all of that out, what does need more priority. I think we're going to focus on that first before making any decisions about what we do with money if we had it. But until we've reached that recognized status, then we'll be able to receive that funding. And as some examples of what other sports have managed to receive, it really is quite substantial. So, I mean, if you look at what Sport England have given to other specific projects or long-term projects, or individual sports that have been given money by UK Sport, which have kind of Olympic pathways, then there's been multiple millions. So I mean, I live in Dorset, and Active Dorset gets 2.6 million from Sport England, and that's for people being physically active, staying healthy in different ways. But other sports, Olympic sports, have been recognised and have multiple millions as well, to decide what priority to give those. It might be supporting high performance athletes, or it might be developing like world-class coaches, or it might be kind of focused grants on the community as well to build some parks where you could just access that in your local park, do some OCR training down the road kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you need to look at one of the most recent examples of recognition, which is Parkour UK. And I for one have seen so many parkour facilities in the area, and I know that a lot of that is driven from the funding they get as a recognised sport. I think in the latest kind of report from Sport England, when they announced a batch of funding, they're getting 1.5 million in funding. Now, it's fair to say, in terms of if we have access to this funding, as Becky outlined, we're going to have to go through a prioritisation of what we want to achieve, and then also apply for the different pots of cash, essentially. So there's no guarantee once we're recognised, but right now we don't have the opportunity to access that funding. And really, to grow the sport, we want to have paid staff centrally, so a small paid staff team, so we can grow the sport. And people like Becky and myself on the board will stay on the board as volunteers. Obviously, we're volunteers right now, and the doing as well. And see that there's only so far you can do that in terms of the amount of hours that so many people within British obstacle sports are investing. So having a small paid staff to take a lot of the administrative work out and get their experience from other sports as well, because a lot of national governing bodies, the staff within them have gone to many national governing bodies, so they know how to run national governing bodies. I think it's going to be a valuable step. And then look into different projects, as we say, around facilities or youth development and various things. It's a great opportunity, which today as a sport, we exist as brands. So brands are always focused, rightly so, on making a profit for their event, not on how we develop the sport and bring underrepresented groups into the sport, for example. I know they do look at those areas, but it really should be a role of something like a national governing body to help with those areas.
Okay, thanks for that, guys. So we'll move on to the next question from Mark Allen. His question: will there be better communication in years to come between events so that athletes get the best opportunities to race at all the events, i.e. the UK Champs is clashing with the OCR WC this year?
Yeah, tough question. And I know Mark's very passionate, rightly so, about this, because we all want to run as many events as possible, especially the big ones. And I was planning to be out at Mammoth Lakes for the Adventure World Champs, the OCR World Champs there. And I'd love to have been there. And actually, I did have a chat with Adrian probably a month or so before around the dates, and he had a few options, and it just wasn't possible in terms of to change, essentially, and the Spartan weekend was already locked. So I think the first step there is it's a long-term project. When Adrian, the founder and owner of OCR WC, if we're going to avoid these clashes, it needs to be a long-term project, and talking about 2-3 years time of avoiding these clashes rather than obviously a month away, or even 2024. We know we've got some clashes in 2024. I think what I would say, and as a positive, is some of those conversations are happening. In 2020, this year, 2023, we avoided 3 clashes. I think I don't want to necessarily call them out but we avoided 3 clashes for a different event, which wouldn't have happened necessarily if British Obstacle Sports weren't there raising the question. We were saying, actually, there's a UK OCR series race on this weekend. It's also a national trials event. Can you potentially move a week back just to allow us, for example, and that happened this year. And we are in conversations around 2024 and 2025 and beyond with a number of our partners to avoid those clashes. But it's not easy. All events want to be on the best weekends. All events have schedules quite often dictated by the locations they're going to be at. But it is something hopefully British Obstacle Sports can facilitate as a neutral third party in some of those discussions. And also, if there's any race directors out there listening, reach out to us and say, I'm thinking of this weekend, are you aware of any events? Because we might be aware of some of the events that haven't published dates yet. So we won't necessarily be able to say, oh, actually that's a Spartan's going to be on that weekend, but we could say, actually there's a big event on that weekend, probably best to avoid it, for example, if it's not public yet. So I guess it's a work in progress, Mark, I'm completely on board, but it's not an easy solve, but we are working towards it. And ultimately we want races to, both from a participation perspective, being not kind of cannibalizing, and then certainly from a competitive perspective as well. It's, if you've got, even if at opposite ends of the country, if it's a high quality competitive event, people will travel, so we want to avoid clashes from that competitive side as well.
It definitely is a difficult one, isn't it, James, that a lot of races will be booking 2 or 3 years in advance. And there are, as you say, there are only certain number of good weekends to put those races on. But if for example, I'm Tough Mudder Hunk, but I know that they probably book the venue maybe 3 years in advance. So it is a long-term project to then start to look at Tough Mudder and an other race to be able to then to liaise, say, well, if you're in this weekend, then we'll go for this weekend. But no, I think as long as BOSS has that open communication with as many race directors as possible, I'm sure we will get to that sort of point when we have, well, let's say fewer clashes than any others. So moving on, and very much in the same vein, so this is from @Trail Running Dude. Is there a way you can liaise with race organisers to communicate with them around changes they make that the community may not agree with?
I think probably a short answer on this one and say yes, like we're in touch with all the organisers. If there's something that an individual doesn't feel comfortable going direct to that organiser, reach out to us. We have been trying to get feedback forms after events. It probably lapsed off a little bit last few events, but as I say, fill that form out if you send that, or just reach out, and happy to have those conversations and represent our members.
I think a good example of that is Spartan Midlands to Spartan Southwest. A lot of feedback went back to the team at Spartan HQ, and I think it seems to have had very much a positive effect for the Southwest series. So feedback directly to the race directors or British Obstacle Sports. But as long as we do offer critical but positive feedback to the race directors, we all then get what we want to get in the end. Is what I would say. Second question from @Trail Running Dude: would it be possible to talk to events and put on only women's waves, as discussed on Talking Dirty OCR?
Yeah, really, really great suggestion from the Talking Dirty OCR podcast. And I think we started thinking about this in a bit more detail when we ran our UKOSF Unite webinar series during COVID. We hosted a webinar focused on this topic about how we could get people more involved. And there's been a few small things happening since, but definitely a lot more that we could do. But it'd be really useful to kind of work with the partners that we have. It doesn't necessarily have to be the governing body forcing all the different people into doing these things. Definitely welcome people volunteering to kind of lead some of those initiatives, and we can facilitate with that. We, as part of the technical committee, we are considering these questions. Should we start together? Should the men and women start together? Should there be, how much time between the waves? All of those things have gone into the national trials decisions, the national championships decisions, and different things like calculating points in series and all those sorts of questions. So we've kind of had this question at the forefront to make sure that it is fair for different categories. So I think if there are people who are willing to kind of help lead that, I can help facilitate. And yeah, we can start those conversations, and hopefully we try and make the space.
Brilliant. So next question from @Mrs. Spalding Strength. Do you have plans to have directories of affiliated training facilities?
Yeah, we do. We have a map. Hopefully we're going to make that more accessible soon. So we have some recognized facilities that have been through our affiliation checks, and we can, I don't know if it's useful to list them now, but that'll be something that you can access from the website soon, and then that'll really highlight which ones we've kind of worked with to check all the things are in place to make it recognized as an affiliated centre, especially if you're new to the sport and you don't know where to go to begin with. That'll be an easy way to go to check those from that directory on the map.
Great. Next question, Jason Westmoreland. Could you have an idiot's guide to OCR about what is OCR? When is it? Where is it? What roughly are the obstacles? Other questions include best ways to train, best clothes to wear.
I think it's a great suggestion. I think something that we'd love to bring onto the website, video content, etc. I think just to kind of, I guess, recap on the last couple of questions, I think all of these ideas are fantastic, and there's so many other great ideas out there. It's just all around how we tackle them, essentially, as volunteers, and how we get them done. Very conscious over the last few years of not taking on, we have at times taken on too much, and then it ends up it ends up becoming a job, essentially, as a volunteer, because it kind of has to get done, which we're absolutely happy to do. But there's always a limit. Obviously, we've got to earn a wage as well. We've got family and racing commitments, and we want to be out there on the course as well. But I do think this is important, especially for bringing in new people into the sport, because I think we all probably recognise that once you first do your first event, you've got no idea about this universe of the sport. So content on the website that explains it, I think, would be really, really valuable. I know we've got Voom Nutrition as a partner now. We're hoping to kind of do a bit of a competition kind of prize with them. So if people produce content for the website, they can get some Voom Nutrition product as well. Just to kind of say thank you for creating this content, because it's going to be valuable. But as I say, just to kind of summarize with these, it's like British Obstacle Sports is the community. We're all volunteers that are passionate about the sport and have kind of either picked up this, like, everything as as board members or on an individual committee, or just picking up a particular task. So there's big and small things that everyone can do. So if someone's passionate and has an idea and wants to run it through British Obstacle Sport, come and speak to us and take it on as a bit of a project, a bit of a side project volunteering, and bring it to life. So yeah, I'd love to see this content, and hopefully later this year we will start to see some of these articles on the website.
Next question from Stuart Neal. Is there any update on the digital membership cards that you were finalising? I assume these will be a more simpler way to show your membership details when registering for a race.
Yeah, so as of today, essentially, we've been sending out emails with membership details on, essentially. So we know that they're needed at certain events or to claim discounts. So we've sent them out as an email with your membership number, expiry date, etc. We do have a partnership now with My Next Match. My Next Match is essentially a membership platform. So we are essentially rolling out a transition from currently people complete registration on the Juco platform, but rolling out a transition to My Next Match. And part of that partnership is that they are developing digital membership cards. So they'll be accessible like in your digital wallets on Android or iPhone, essentially. So really simple. If you're a member, you'll have your card in your wallet and you'll just be able to swipe and show it, essentially. The goal is to have that available this year. So I don't have a specific timescale, which, to be honest, as a project manager, slightly scares me. I do need to follow up on that. But the intention is by the end of this year. So for next season, most likely everyone will have their digital membership cards.
Great. Next question is from Ian. This may not be our Ian, it's just Ian. To what extent will British Obstacle Sports get involved with investigations of incidents at races in its licensed events once you're recognised?
Yeah, it was Ian. It was Ian, our Ian. Thank you, Ian. It's a tough question. It's a tough question because, and I'm very glad he put once recognised, because to do this right. So essentially right now we have licensed events. and we do checks of risk assessments. We check insurance, make sure they're insured. We do a kind of a check of Companies House and any available financial information. So I personally had a couple of phone calls with race directors, actually quite difficult conversation to say, we've looked at your financial information, we've got slight concerns about this and this, and they've kind of documented and shown why actually no, financially sound, everything's okay. But we're having those conversations because we want being a licensed event to mean something. We want it to be a real trust symbol. But equally, we can't go in and as a voluntary team, partly because we don't have the expertise, and work through checking obstacles or validating how we ensure obstacles are fully safe, and how we learn, I should say, because I think all events that we've licensed, very strong risk assessments, but things happen in events and mistakes happen, and it's ensuring we learn from those. Actually, that's the important thing. So definitely, hopefully sooner, but definitely want to recognise we do want to develop that safety management side of British obstacle sports, and actually doing it as a community of events, because my view is that probably today we don't share enough information from events. So mistakes might happen in one event and brand, and then there's another event brand over here that hasn't learned from that mistake because there isn't a knowledge sharing system. So Towergate Insurance is a partner. We've had discussions with Nick and the team there around how we build up this knowledge essentially, and how we share information. So if there is an accident, what's been learned from that accident, how do potentially obstacles need to be slightly tweaked in the future to account for that. As you can imagine, with hundreds of thousands of people doing events and multiple events around the country, that needs an infrastructure to be able to run and do it right. But certainly something that would be valuable, because insurance is expensive for all event providers, but certainly in the obstacle space as well, because it is seen as a high risk sport. So helping to reduce insurance premiums for events is only going to be a positive thing, and helping ultimately events become slightly cheaper in the future as well. So I think I answered that question.
Following on, following on, we've got Anonymous. Why are you forcing Spartan and Tough Mudder to require British obstacle sports memberships for their competitive events?
Yes, and actually this is one of the reasons why we set up this AMA, because it's a question that came up in some discussions, and I've offered to speak to people, and I have actually had one-to-one conversations with people around this topic. But what I won't do is just have a back and forth in comments and Facebook comments or Instagram comments or wherever, because I don't think you ever come to a solution through doing that. You don't come to a mutual understanding. A conversation between people you can talk through, and you can see why certain things are happening. Because I do understand there was a lot of the community were very supportive of it, but also a lot of the community weren't supportive. Understand that it's a change, and Spartan and Tough Mudder are bigger than brands in certain respects. It's a lifestyle. People are very attached, but rightly so. I am as well. Right. It's part of DNA in terms of who we all are as obstacle athletes. So I get it, and I get some of the reasons as well in terms of people feeling that we want to encourage more and more people into the sport. Why are we stopping putting this barrier up around competitive events? Which is a fair question. I think I would say a few things. One, as British obstacle sports, we would never force any provider to require British obstacle sports membership. Always a partnership in those discussions. Actually, Spartan, to their credit, were very open to how we achieve and how we grow the sport, and it was a suggestion from Spartan in terms of how we grow the sport, because they see how beneficial it will be to become recognised as a sport. So I guess how to explain, we need to get recognised as a sport to really grow participation, really grow the sport and the infrastructure around the country. So we kind of needed to potentially lose a few people because it was required, even though we do have day membership, and it's for a fairly substantial entry fee. You can do it for £4, or it's £12.50, or even with a discount £8.75 as a Spartan and Tough Mudder. So it isn't a huge amount, but for us, actually, that slight barrier, which you see in lots of other sports, like triathlon, for example, was felt value in terms of us getting to that point of recognition. So I guess there's two parts there. One, we feel it's super, super important in terms of that recognition. We're very grateful for everyone who's become a member at Spartan and Tough Mudder. And it's always a partnership. I don't think, especially Spartan and Tough Mudder, I don't think we'd ever be in a position to force such big brands to require British Obstacle Sports membership. I think, to their credit, it's something that they've come forward with as a recommendation to help grow the sport. Anything you want to add there, Becky, on that point?
Yeah, I suppose, and hopefully people can recognize that, during those events this year, like we've had the technical officials offering their support at these events as well. So we're kind of helping add to the volunteers who are helping kind of run these events and especially make it a fair competition. So hopefully you can kind of immediately see that impact through that partnership and that requirement. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think the work that the technical officials are doing in terms of competition is invaluable. And I think it's important that all of us as competitive racers understand that brands primarily make their money through the participation side of events. Competitive side is probably the most work for them, and still super valuable, but a lot of effort to put on competitive events compared to the size of the participation side of the sport. So really, as a community of competitive athletes, that kind of membership is so valuable in terms of us as British Obstacle Sports helping to develop the competitive side as well, and in terms of not just Spartan competitive and Tough Mudder competitive, but the sport as a whole in terms of the OCR European Championships, the World Championships, and the UK Championships as well. So I think thank you to everyone who has become members.
Yes.
And as I say, it's where we need to get to as a sport, because equally also there's only so long a voluntary organisation on limited funding can exist as well. So we need to actually grow and get to that point where we can fund the sport, and then that's another important call out as well in terms of where we need to take the sport in the future.
Awesome. Now, it sounds like you're a bit of a presenter, because it's a really nice segue to talk about the champs. So we have a lot of questions all about British champs, OCR series and stuff like that. So the rest of this we'll talk about champions in one form or another. First question, this is from Jonathan Fletcher. Will there be an Ultra Championship?
The Ultra Championship, yes. So next year there will be part of the 2024 series. So currently we have the UKOCR series, we have the Scottish series, and there'll also be the Ultra series. Thank you to Karen and Michelle, who are going to be kind of helping lead that. So yes, you will be able to race kind of in a competitive series for the longer multi-lap distances, many hours, and we're going to kind of work on that over the winter and release the information as soon as we can about how that's going to be organized and which events are included. We're hoping to work on that very soon and get that information out to participants so they can help make their plans for next year as soon as possible. But if you're interested in sort of helping out more with that, then let us know. It takes quite a lot of effort behind the scenes with things like organizing the points, as well as making sure that the rule books are ready in advance and that information is communicated to everybody at the right time, as well as like planning which events people are going to go to and which events should be in the series.
This is news to me. That's amazing, and also why I guess Michelle Carney kind of dropped me a message a couple of weeks ago saying, "What Ultra OCRs do you know will in the UK?" That's fantastic news.
It's another exclusive, Will. Although actually, I think we may have mentioned it. We may have mentioned it a little bit on the EGM, but Michelle Carney is going to help lead it alongside Karen Macquarie, Karen sits on the technical committee.
Yeah,
it's not 100% confirmed, but almost 100%. So, well, I guess until we announce it fully, that's when it's 100% confirmed. But yeah, exciting. But no Ultra Champs itself. But I think the series will be a good Ultra substitute. Series.
Yeah,
brilliant, excellent. And again, amazing segue from Malcolm Dunn. How do you select which races will be in the UKOCR series?
Yeah, so the UKOCR series is done in run by UKOCR, and we help support it as British Obstacle Sports. So really, it's with we have discussions with the technical committee with Alan and Ian, but there are a few criteria we have for the events to meet, including things to do with the timing, as well as making sure that we include events of different sizes, so larger, more well-known events, but also making sure that there's space for smaller events to help kind of support the community in that way, to encourage athletes to visit those smaller events rather than just the ones which have a big marketing budget. We spent, originally this came in response to a sort of a series missing, I guess, and a quick response to organise something. So last year in 2022 was the first edition of the UKOCR series, and we learned a lot from that. We took a lot of feedback on board over the winter and tried to get out the information sooner to athletes, as well as kind of having it feed into the UKOCR awards last year as well. So there are several criteria. We try to have a balance over like one a month. And we had discussions about how many points. We actually adjusted the points last year to make sure there was fair competition at all levels. So within the, sort of the top 10, but also ensuring that there was kind of suitable competition at different stages within the rankings, and that it wouldn't be influenced by the size of the number of participants in some events compared to others. Like, for example, Spartan race versus beach ballistic might have totally different number of athletes competing, and that could affect the points. So we made some adjustments there. We have some checks about what they do in terms of organizing it and making sure there's some kind of penalty system in place, and rules that are shared beforehand. We've been working this year on releasing the rule books beforehand, which have been checked with our technical committee. So we have a head technical official, and then other technical officials on site. So they work with the race director beforehand to decide those rules, and make sure that they are clear and that they all, flow in the right way. The events are still the events, so we don't impart our own specific penalty system on them. It's still down to the event organizers how their races run, but we help kind of the running of that and the organization and the raising of the questions about what's suitable and fair. Hopefully people have recognized the usefulness and the benefits of those rule books this year. We haven't managed to get them out for every single event. That's something we're kind of endeavoring to do for each event, and as well as getting them out in more advance as well. Again, it's a voluntary thing which takes quite a lot of time, as well as the points processing afterwards, but the turnaround on that's been really good, so thank you for the volunteers that have helped with that. Are there any other criteria for the UKOCR series about choosing the events?
I think you've covered most of it. I think the only thing I wanted to say was two things. One is we've tried to not have every single event. So while for example, in the UKOCR series, it's I think 7 of 4 events.
Yeah.
You have to do 4 of 7 events.
4 of 7. Yeah.
But I know previously, for example, the Mud School League, there was about 20, 30 different events. So essentially every competitive event you could do and get points. So we wanted to kind of keep it a bit more focused.
Yeah.
And then the second part is trying to, with that in mind, it's like roughly 1 event a month. So that's been another consideration. But really open to events that aren't competitive currently, developing a competitive wave and potentially in the future being in the series. I know Ian keen to kind of get it around the country, and that's probably the last point around the distribution of the country as well, been key consideration.
Excellent. So lots about the British champs now, guys. So first question from Tony Leary: is the UK champs going to be just another Spartan race, or will there be other non-Spartan obstacles? And if so, what are those obstacles?
Yeah, it's a good question from Tony. I think there is a part answer to that, and there's an almost going to be announced answer as well, which I can't reveal. So it is not, and we've been quite open with everyone. It is primarily going to be a Spartan course. So we are not in a position we're going to run an independent championships. It would consume everyone's time from a voluntary perspective. If we went, the difference between a UK champs hosted by Spartan and a UK champs independent, beyond obviously, yes, there would be a lot of interest in different obstacles and stuff. I get that from a community perspective, although I think this event's going to be amazing. From a recognition perspective, and ultimately what a lot of us are working towards, it would matter zero in terms of the recognition perspective. And to be honest, as the kind of, I guess, the chair and the lead right now in terms of getting that recognition, the time I need to invest in my voluntary hours is towards recognition. So every hour I'd spend towards the UK champs would take away from that recognition. So I think as a community, we also need to be patient that we're not in a position of independent champs. To be honest, the last independent UK champs ended the last federation. So we also need to be mindful of that. But we did agree with Spartan because we want it to not just be 100% a Spartan, but there's going to be a number of surprises on course. I think this is another exclusive, Will. because I don't think we've announced it yet. Sam Winkworth of Dirty Rotten Scramble is going to be the British Obstacle Sports race director that weekend.
Oh, amazing.
So he's going to work with the Spartan race director. So there's going to be approximately 70-80% of the course will be Spartan, although there will be potentially obstacles on there that aren't used normally in a super. But then there'll be 20% of the course, whether that be doing the terrain slightly differently or some guest obstacles that you'll see that will kind of mix things up a bit and surprise people. So it's certainly going to be, it's good. People are going to want to do it because it's going to be very different in those surprises. As I say, we've got some guest obstacles, which I can't reveal yet, but I think people are going to be excited about them.
Amazing. So actually talking more about obstacles, question from Scotty Barker. Do you have numbers for the British champs yet? Curious to know about the additional obstacles threshold set by Spartan and how close you are to meeting them.
Yeah, so we are about 50% towards our target. And I think to reassure Scotty, because we did raise this on the members group, there will be guest obstacles regardless of the numbers. But the amount will, so I don't think we're going to go crazy numbers now in terms of hitting 800, 1,000, whatever. That would lead to more guest obstacles. But we've got a decent amount. We're 50% of the way there. Encourage everyone who hasn't signed up yet and who's going to do it to sign up, because it really does help in terms of planning. It helps us as British Obstacle Sports, also helps Spartan with their planning in terms of medal ordering, t-shirt ordering. So we're about 50% of the way there. As I say, get signed up. And we'll have those guest obstacles and those additional kind of bespoke obstacles. If another 200 people sign up in the next couple of weeks, in addition, we may have a few more as well. So yeah, it's not that because we've not hit a certain number, we're not getting any. We're always going to have those surprises. It's just, as I explained, we might have a few more surprises if there was going to be another 200, 300 sign up as well.
And the qualification for age group, it isn't, if you've done 2 races before, from quite a long list of races, then you can take part. As long as you're following the rules and racing fairly, then it's just going to be a more exciting course than anything else you probably try that weekend. So it's a really good event to take part in, even if you're not competing at the top level.
Yeah, get some bespoke bling.
Yeah.
If you get on the podium, some bespoke bling. There's a few more surprises to be announced there in terms of something in elite as well, in terms of the podiums, which I can't reveal yet because we should not reveal all our secrets on this podcast. Will you do this to us?
We all love exclusives, you know that, James. Next question from Tony Leary. What will the penalty system look like for the UK champs?
Yeah, so the OCR technical committee have been discussing this in our regular meetings that we have, as well as kind of the meetings that we've had with Spartan Race as well. They're really helpful and in favour of us having kind of full control over how that is organised. So they're open to our guidance there, which is really great. So obviously we've observed what's been going on at different national levels, international levels, and understand the pros and cons, of which there are many of different types of systems. And we've actually spent quite a lot of time at length talking about them. Ultimately, what we want to try and do is avoid DNFs. We want everyone to take part and to finish the race. And so the penalties they'll be strong, they'll be effective, and we've seen the benefit of that in the most recent racing weekend that we've had, with people kind of celebrating the difficulty of the penalties and reflecting the difficulty of the obstacles in recent Spartan races. So I think strong penalties like that will be used. Certainly not an advantage over completing the obstacle, so that you will be advantageous to complete the obstacle. That is the aim in obstacle course racing, but we don't want to make it so complicated or complex or limited that people are not finishing the race or not having a ranking. So that's kind of the key target with that kind of penalty system, and that will be announced in due course about how exactly it will work.
I think Becky, when we spoke about this on the technical committee, you made a good point that because people have raised the issue around the European Championships and the World Championships are the free band system, single attempt on suspension obstacles. We don't feel we're quite at that point in the UK in terms of maturity of athletes to implement that at championships, but Spartan already, and I think it very likely to be for the UK champs, is single attempt. So you have that pressure of single attempt anyway, and so the penalties will justify the failure. So people that complete all obstacles will get a significant advantage.
Great. Next question from Scotty. Will the UK champs be moving around for future events?
So next year's event is already announced. It's a different time of year. So you can sign up for that one, I guess, for the actual weekend event, or put it in your diary anyway. After that, we haven't got anything solid prepared. And again, the focus is on the full application for being a recognised sport. And then we'll see, how we can grow the national championships with that in mind, with all our sporting pathways and our governance pathways fully developed. So we review all this kind of processes each year anyway. So, after this is the first time we've had qualification for the FISO World Championships, and that will be reviewed immediately after the one that we're competing in September. So all of those kind of learnings that we'll take into consideration, as well as feedback from the members following this inaugural senior national championships, to kind of make those decisions and see what's possible. So I'm not sure.
Well, it's open, isn't it? I think some dates there. October 8th is this year. June 29th is the championships next year in Midlands. We should also call out the British OCR Junior Championships on the October 22nd as well. So from competitive from 10 to 17 and 6+ non-competitive. But 2025 there'll be a request for proposal. There's no there's no selection in terms of it will be a Spartan, it won't be. So if there's other events that are interested, it's definitely a discussion we'd have as British Obstacle Sports.
Brilliant. Next question from John Paul. Will the UK champs be used as a qualifier for any future events?
So we've released the qualification events for next year's OCR European Championships. And the National Championships is a qualifier for the longer race, the standard distance, at the 2024 European Championships, but it's not a qualifier for the short course. So if you've taken a time to look at the qualification races, they're on our website, you'll notice that they're actually split now. So basically anything 5K and below, it fits into our short course kind of criteria. So those races qualify you for the short course at the European Championships, and the longer events like our National Championship qualify you for the standard distance at the European Championships. The National Championships will be included for that, and we'll update you as more things are kind of decided for the selection process for next year. But it is a key race in the calendar, the National Championships.
The final question that we've got from the guys at UKOCR was from Andy Reid. Will there be prize money, and who is going to provide it?
Yes, there will be prize money. We are finalising the exact amount. It'll be good. I think it'll be the first prize money we've had for a while. I'm trying to think. It's probably the Spartan Elite Series was the last time there was prize money. So go on, Becky, you were going to say something.
I think there was supposed to be prize money at the European Elite Series as well.
Right. Okay. Oh well. Okay.
I don't know if that's definitely happening. It was on there.
If it was on Zendesk, someone needs to reference that Zendesk. Okay. Well, that was European though, so in the UK. We'll still take it. There will be it will be funded. I guess from the event organisers, so Spartan primarily. There may be some additional boost that we give as British Obstacle Sports as well, but currently not. There's it's something we need to look at in terms of how we allocate funding as well. Hoping to announce, we've kind of had a few things that we've said we're announcing soon. We're trying to announce as much of this as possible by the end of August, so including prize money as well and the exact amounts.
Brilliant, guys. Thank you very much for answering all those questions really clearly, open and honestly. And I guess now just kind of giving you a few minutes to talk about British Obstacle Sports, maybe the benefits of joining, any other exclusive or announcements that you might want to make. No pressure there. Next few minutes over to you guys.
We should have prepared this. Go on, Becky.
Well, we've been talking a lot about OCR, but of course, British Obstacle Sports also has ninja sport, and we have a whole ninja sport technical committee. We work with the Ninja Sport UK kind of community group as well, and there have been previously championships for that, as well as kind of it's like different kind of events that we're hoping to work towards more of a series. So if you're interested in those shorter, sharper events, of which there's different kind of formats as well, so ones that are more against the clock, whereas there's also ones which could be points based, or there's team based ones as well. So we're really hoping to grow that side of competition, but also physical activity as well, working with some of the, I think, on the affiliated training centres. For example, Gloucester is one of ours, Ninja Warrior UK Parks is one of our affiliated centres. So there is a lot of growth around that as well, and I think that's still pretty big in terms of the number of people taking part, and we're hoping to we've seen some great crossover of athletes this year with the OCR 100 meters at the European Championships, and the guys going to the World Championships as well. So I think that's pretty exciting. I think we can learn a lot from the ninja sport, and it can help with the OCR as well. So I think that's something to kind of not forget about. I've attended a few of their competitions as well, and they're really, really, really supportive, even if you haven't really done it before. So if you want to take part in more of that side of things, especially some of the younger athletes, if they're considering like different ways to train in multiple sports, then that might be a good way to go as well.
Very good call out. I think some of the questions have steered us down a certain route. I would just say a few things. One is, I think it's a big thank you to all of our members, but also all of our volunteers as well. It's pretty incredible what a team of volunteers have done since 2019 in terms of the structure. Created a huge membership base, the biggest membership base in the UK for obstacle sports ever, certainly. And as I say, I do want to reiterate, it's a volunteer team, and hopefully it's come across from Becky and I just how passionate we are about the sport, and that's reflected, I think, in everyone who's got involved. And I think hopefully that highlights that we're all here to do the right thing, got the best intentions for the sport, and that's why we've got involved, because we want it to be successful. I think the other kind of important factor is, if it doesn't happen, it's happening elsewhere around the world. So there's sport, many countries are already recognised: Sweden, Norway, Poland, I think, Hungary, Italy, Philippines. So those countries are developing, certainly on a competitive level, and you could see at the European Championships just how advanced some of those countries were. So we're going to get left behind in that respect. And also the sport is moving. People have heard around pentathlon and modern pentathlon, the inclusion obstacle there. That's almost certainly going to happen. I think the final vote is in November around 2028 Olympics. Super exciting. And you can imagine, if there's not a national governing body for obstacle sports, there's a void there, and there's an Olympic sport, and who knows what would happen then in terms of what the UK sports councils would suggest that happens, because there will be kind of governing body control then at that point, because it needs to happen. So really, British obstacle sports, the people that are invested in the sport and have grown in the sport, need to be taking that ownership as well. I think they're the main points. I said thank you, which I think just want to reiterate. It's incredible what's been achieved, and this is exciting news that we expressed tonight in terms of hitting the 1650, getting to the pre-application, and now, like I say, it's been hard work up to this point, but now the hard work starts again almost as we go, hopefully, into the full application. Become a member. There are many benefits in terms of insurance, discounts, doing certain events, being at national championships. But I think I would say do a member because you love the sport and you want to see it grow, and you want to see everyone out in parks around the country, because we all love it and we can see the benefits of doing it as a sport. So for me, it's not always a reason for becoming a member of something, but hopefully people will see that's why you should become a member, because we want to see more people doing it.
It does feel like the start of like a legacy. And even if we just reflect on 1 year or maybe 2 years, if I think about exactly what it was like this time a year ago or 2 years ago, it was different. We've come such a long way in that time, and that is, credit to everybody who's volunteered time. I just really hope that we can kind of keep that momentum going. We've hit this milestone, but I think we need to just carry it forwards and put our kind of stamp on it and take ownership of our own sport that we all love so much.
100%. Thanks, Becky. Final note. Any questions, come and speak to the board. Becky, myself, Shador, Ali, Mike, Honor. We're all here to answer questions, and we want to, any concerns you have, any queries, come and speak to us or drop us a message. Happy to chat.
James, Becky, thank you very much for your time, for answering all of the questions that have come via UKOCR channels. This has been the Ask Me Anything session with British Obstacle Sports. Again, if you'd like to join, visit the British Obstacle Sports website. It's britishobstaclesports.org, or you can follow them on their own social channels at British Obstacle Sports. My name is Will Chung. This has been a UK OCR podcast with James and Becky and British Obstacle Sports. Thank you very much for your time, and see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.